Good afternoon, everybody. So I thought I would update you guys on how my reading has been going this month, and it has been going bad. So I was off to a decent start when the month started. I read quite a lot in October. A lot of them were library books, but then right before Thanksgiving, and we went away for Thanksgiving, I got sick. And, I was just not feeling reading any of the books that I got from the library or any of my own personal books. It was not fun. Thankfully, I am better. I am mostly better now, although, my ears are still not 100%. And I'm congested still a little bit. And unfortunately, the cough has not gone away, so. And my one form of exercise is going for runs and in the outside. And I don't like working out of the gym that much because then you have to go there, physically drive there, and it's a bit of a hassle, but I probably should do that because, I have it in my DNA to, if I'm not careful, to get bigger in my body type. But maybe I should consider asking my dad about taking me to the gym because at least I won't be out in the cold. And once again, my mom reminded me about my bad eating habits. It's more like I just eat a lot. It's, although it's not that I don't eat crappy food, but it's not like I drink a lot of soda. And my mom doesn't have little Debbie snacks in the house unless, she's gonna send them to my nephews and she might have leftovers. So, it's not that I eat a lot of sugary stuff, but when I do, I'll eat, because I like food. But anyway, I did get some reading done, and unfortunately I did DNF 3 books that I got from the library. See, my problem with the library, because I think I might have to stop going again for a little while, is I will get 10 books. And then I forget all these books because I'm trying to get the books from the library finished. Because, again, as I said in multiple videos, yes, I'm aware that I can renew the books, but it does give me anxiety when I know that, okay, I have to bring these books back or at least renew them by a certain date, or else I'm going to have to pay a little bit of a fee, which isn't a lot, compared to, depending on how long it is before you finally remember to return it or at least renew it. And I do always make sure I do that, either a few days ahead of time or on the actual day, on time. But it still just drives me crazy because I know I have to return it. And if it's a book that's going to take me a lot longer to read, then it's even worse. Because, yes, I can renew it, but it still gives me anxiety, knowing that eventually I do have to return it. And plus, it was one of these things where some of these books, one of them I was just trying to see if I really don't like the genre, it was a thriller, and it was good writing, and I was kind of interested, but then I just got kind of bored and remembered why I don't like this genre. So, I'll show you those books first that I did DNF. So the first one is actually fantasy, which is a genre I do love, but it's middle grade and the middle grade / kids book, and with that kind of stuff, I have to be in the mood because I'm way past. I'm a very I'm a mature reader. I'm almost 30 years old, so I'm way past the middle grade level of reading, and yes, those books are fun and very whimsical, and sometimes I do like reading something lighthearted and whimsical and fun, where it's going to have a happy ending no matter what. The stakes aren't going to be super high, but then there are other times where I'm reading it and I'm forgetting that, okay, this was originally written for 13-year-olds. So of course the stakes aren't going to be super high. Of course the writing's going to be more simplistic. But sometimes I do forget. And I get really frustrated. I was let down by the first book in the Five Kingdoms series. That it was kind of a disappointment. It was cute and fun. And I like the creativity of Brandon Mull and everything, but it wasn't as compared to like reading something by Brandon Sanderson, one of his adult books, because I do believe he also writes middle grade too, like the Mistborn series. It was just a bit like, oh, I forgot, this is originally for kids. Well, not kids, but preteens and early teens. Although I do read YA, but that is a little bit more mature. But anyway, and that is the book I'm talking about, and it's Cornelia Funk's Dragon Rider. This is the same author who wrote Inkheart, and unfortunately the library did not have Inkheart, but it did have this one, so I figured, you know what, I'll get into Cornelia Funk, see if I like her. And the writing, and and I'm not going to totally dismiss the idea of reading Inkheart. Maybe when depending on the mood I'm in, I might check it out. Because I like the movie, and I thought the concept was cool, like the sky being able to, like when he reads out loud from a book, the characters come to life and come out of the book world. Unfortunately, that also means you have to do a little bit of a trade. And that was part of the conflict of the plot, was his wife, spoiler alert, gets sent into the book world. But I don't think that's, or at least in the movie, that was kind of made, well, maybe not. Maybe, I guess it is a spoiler. Sorry. But this was still cute. This was basically, it's in a fantasy world, and they live in this country where dragons roam about and live, and the humans start invading their land. So, let me see if they... Okay, so it doesn't say what she is. So one of the dragons, our main character, Fire Drake, remembering that the head of their, the elder dragon had talked about the Rim of Heaven, which is a mythical, legendary land for dragons to go. So when the humans invade, he decides he's gonna find the Rim of Heaven, even though, the other dragons are saying, oh, it's just a legend, it's not real. But he refuses to give up. So he, along with his friend Sorrel, which I do not remember what she is. Let me see if it says it in here in the beginning. Does it say what she is in it right now? Okay, it doesn't say what she is, and it's gonna waste me some time looking for it. So I don't remember. I know she's some kind of mythical creature that looks like a cross between a squirrel and a rat or something. Although I don't even remember if that's correct. But they set on a journey to find the Rim of Heaven, and along the way they go to a city where their friend and little field mouse's cousin lives, where he makes maps. So they go to this city to find this rat who makes these maps, so he can help them find, or at least close to the rim, where the Rim of Heaven supposedly is. And in this city, they come across an orphan boy named Ben, and Fire Drake, feeling sorry for this boy, decides to take him along, much to Sorrel's chagrin, because he's a human, so automatically she's like, I don't like you. I don't trust you. So they begin this journey, and they end up in a little village or encampment where the scientists are collecting animals, and Sorrel gets captured. So Ben decides to go look for her and to save her. And along the way, they run into this other guy who I don't remember his name either. The stick-like creature, who you, as the audience, we know that this stick-like creature actually works for this enemy dragon, who is her dragon-like creature who wants to get rid of Fire Drake. And he has sent this stick-like guy to spy on them. And they set out to, and they run into this And that's basically all I read. Oh, and they encounter mountain dwarves, and one of the dwarves is the guy who tells the enemy dragon or dragon-like creature about Fire Drake. And they also meet a human scientist who believes in their kind and respects them and values their kind. So he is helping. So the last part was him helping them to go in the direction of where the Room of Heaven possibly may be. Like I said, I only read like a small chunk of this book. Unfortunately, it's 57 chapters. Short chapters, but still really long. And like I said, and I know it's kind of weird that I DNF'd it, because I did kind of like it at the time. But I lost interest, and I think part of my mistake was not bringing it with me when we went to go to my grandma's, because I brought a whole bunch of books with me. But this edition is a heavy hardback edition, naked hardback edition, so I didn't want to take it with me. And like I said, with middle grade, it depends on my mood. But I definitely think, if you like middle grade and adventure stories and like dragons, then I think you should dismiss my opinion and check it out. Unless you've already read it, because Cornelia Funk is a very popular author. And it's also very funny too. It's cute, funny, and it's adventurous, and Cornelia Funk, I guess maybe she's Swedish or something, because it's translated by it's a translated book. And in this edition, there's actually a little short story from Sorrel, about Sorrel. But anyway, there's Sorrel, and there's Ben, that little yellow cat-like looking creature. It looks kind of more like a cat mixed with a squirrel. But anyway, like I said, definitely, I think even if I DNF'd it, and who knows, maybe one day I'll read it again, like get it from the library. Although so far since living here, I haven't borrowed a book more than once. I just tend to get way over to like 6 to 10 books. But you don't have to spend money. You just use your library card. So it's like, of course you're gonna get a lot of books from the library, because you're not spending your money. The other two I DNF'd. Okay, so the one I mentioned earlier in the genre that I was trying to see if I really liked it or not was In the Woods by Tana French. I had lately been hearing a lot about Tana French, especially because her book, The Witch Elm, just came out, and it's not part of the series that this book comes from. This book is the first book in the series. It's the Dublin Murder Squad series, and from what I know about the series, each book centers around a different main character in the squad. And like I said, they're thrillers. I believe they're all thrillers. And this one is, from the little bit I've read of it and what I've heard on BookTube on here, is that it's basically, this particular story centers around this guy that when he was a little boy, he was the only one that came out of the woods, and he doesn't remember what happened to the two other kids that were with him in the woods. So, it's years later, as an adult, and I think the case he's working on is a similar situation to what happened to him when he was a little boy. It takes place in Ireland, which is one of the things I did like about it. Because normally I read books set in big cities in America that are thrillers, if I did read a thriller, which actually I've only really read one. But the ones that I've heard of, I haven't heard of that many in Europe, that are set in Europe when I do hear about them. But yeah, I apologize. Like I said, I still have my cough, and it's really cold here in North Carolina. And I just came back from going to class. and I was walking around the campus to get to my mom's car, so I had to be in the cold for a few minutes, for like 5 minutes to walk back to my mom's car. And I think she did that because, one, she's running late, and I think also because we had a few minutes of conversation before I got out of the car to go into class about how the coughing has made it difficult for me to go running, like I said earlier in the video. And, walking around the campus with my backpack, before I left, before I got out of the car, she did point out that that's good exercise. So maybe she decided to put me through my paces. But anyway, so it's not a bad book. It's just not my genre, I mean, the writing was actually pretty good. The little bit I read it before I decided to DNF it. Like I said, when I DNF books, it's not always because they're bad. Sometimes I just lose interest in them. But I definitely, if you like this kind of story, and if you haven't checked out Talking with French, then I say check it out. Sorry, I'm kind of covering it. And I also like this cover. This cover is really cool with the words written in the tree branches. I think that's kind of cool. The design of this cover. Now, the last one I DNF that I tried to read, I think I got a little bit farther in this one. It was a little bit more of a not personal preference, but personal. It was more an emotionally personal thing. Like, I was just not comfortable with reading it. And that is The Unseen World by Liz Moore. This, before I give you my reasons why, this is a story about this girl, Ada. She was raised by her single father, David, who is a scientist. And Ada has she's never really had any exposure to other kids. He homeschools her, and the only exposure to other people that she has is he has taken her to his lab to work with his coworkers. So they have kind of become her friends. So she doesn't really have a lot of social experience, and except for them. And but sadly, her father, and this is the reason why I was not comfortable with reading it. And that is that David develops Alzheimer's. And eventually, when he passes away, Ada realizes she's starts to learn that there's more to her father than what she knew, which is very difficult for her because she thought her and her father were super close, and that she knew everything about him and was the only person who really understood him. But then she realized that there's things about him that she didn't know. And I think I did get a little spoiled because I decided out of curiosity after I DNF'd it to look on Goodreads and see what other people said, just, again, out of curiosity. But, so I DNF'd this book because, in my family, there was someone who I was very close with, a family member who had Alzheimer's. So, and that was back in 2013, so it has been a long time, but it's hard for me to read. Like, people, there are people who it's hard for them to read stories, who do not like reading stories about rape. And I know probably people will say, oh, Alzheimer's happens, it's natural. But really, it's more like dementia is the natural thing. Everybody has a little bit of dementia. But Alzheimer's, not every old person will get Alzheimer's, so it was just really hard for me to read a book where someone loses someone to Alzheimer's. I wasn't comfortable with it. And, but despite that, it was a good and well-written book. Although, I did realize I had kind of a problem with I feel like the author, first of all, the beginning was really slow. I hadn't even got to the main part where Ada is trying to realizing there's things that she doesn't know about her father. I didn't even get to that. I'm still in the part where she learns that her father has Alzheimer's, and like, it goes back and forth oh, there's also, it goes in the 1920s and 30s. It goes back and forth in time a couple times. And there, in the beginning, there was a lot of the author like telling us things. And I think someone said on Goodreads and they felt like Liz Moore did that on purpose because she was giving us the background of their relationship and everything and how they were so close and all that. And that's why she did a lot of telling. But yes, the book, the beginning is very slow. And like I said, maybe if I didn't feel a personal connection, a little too personal of a connection with what her father has, then maybe I would have liked the book. But it just made me a little too emotional for my liking. And I know that books are supposed to do that because it means the author's doing their job. But for me, I'm not ready for that. No, I probably will never be ready to read a book where someone loses someone. I mean, I don't even know. Like, I read years ago before this person in my family died of this. I did read The Notebook, and that one has a character who has Alzheimer's. So, and now I can't even think about the idea of rereading that book. Although most of that book does not spend much time, because it goes back into the past in that book, but still, the idea of, like, maybe you guys think it's stupid, but for me, it's just, anyway, enough of that. So, like I said, check it out for yourself if you like this literary kind of stuff. Which I normally do, but in this case. Okay, so, unfortunately this month, I only finished 2 books. Well, I will be finishing up a 3rd book, although I don't know if I'll continue with it. I mean, I'm so close to the end, like, I only have 3 more chapters left, but it's driving me crazy, and not in a good way. Like, this character is just so annoying, and again, not in a good way. Well, since I'm thinking about it, let me tell you what that book is. Okay, so I've been wanting to read the Discworld, Terry Pratchett's the Discworld, but the library does not have them, and the librarian that I spoke to, Melissa, had no idea what I was talking about when I mentioned Terry. She thought I was talking about a different Terry Pratchett, a female one actually. So this is the only Terry Pratchett book that they had, and it was in the kids section of the bookstore. Of the library, the young adult in middle grade, but in kids. And that is Terry Pratchett's Dodger. Now, this is not a part of the Discworld. I thought it was at first. I was wondering if that was the case. It's not. It's a historical fiction about this kid, the 17-year-old young man named Dodger, who he is very clever and resourceful. He's a tosher, meaning I guess he finds things in the streets and in the sewers, like little treasures and stuff, like money and all that. And he ends up, while he's toshing or whatever, he overhears a girl screaming, and it turns out this young woman is these guys are trying to beating up and trying to capture this young woman. So he rescues her, and she is taken to, I still don't know if she works for this family or not, or if or they happen to be crossing paths at the time and decide to help Dodger rescue her. But she's taken in by the Mayhews, which I believe are real actual people in history. And Dodger, is checking up her, and he starts to like her and has a little bit of a crush on her. And it's kind of, the whole book is about this situation and how it escalates to where he becomes a bit of a hero in this city, and he starts coming up in the world. And it is a YA book. Like I said, the main character is a 17-year-old, but then again, like, there are adult books where the main characters are teenagers. It's fun so far. It's kind of fun. It's just very, like, the character Dodger is kind of annoying. Like, he's one of those characters that's written to be like, well, I'm Dodger, or I would do this, and he's like, there's a couple things that annoy me about this book, and this character, he's very much a Gary Stu character. He's like so permanent. He's always getting out of scrapes so easily throughout the whole book. Like, if he got out of a few of them, I would be rooting for him, but because throughout the whole book, he's somehow dodges everybody, as he's called Dodger. He's really annoying, and he's got this huge ego. It's like he's a 7-year-old kid, and all the adults love him, with the exception of a few that end up liking him anyway. You know? The only people that don't like him are the bad guys. And it's like, real adults would not behave like this. And it's like, maybe Terry Pratchett's thinking, oh, this is for young adults, so I have to make this character so, like, clever teenager and stuff. I understand that in kids' books in middle grade, you want to make the kids look really clever and resourceful and always able to get out of situations, like in the series of unfortunate events, because it's for kids. And you kind of want and I think authors try to boost kids' egos and like be like, see, you can do this kind of approach. And in those kind of kids' books, those adults are really, usually, a lot of times, really dumb. But in this case, the adults aren't dumb. And I'm a little bit conflicted on an aspect of this book where, like, Dodger, there's things, I guess because he's a street urchin, he lives on the streets and in the sewers, and he hasn't had the opportunity to go to school and be educated and be able to read books and all that. So, like, I guess the characters have to explain things to him. But then you have scenes where characters talk about things, explain situations, but it's just, I would have to give, it's hard for me to give an example, but there's just times when I'm like, okay, so you have to explain to him what this means, but you can talk to him like this at the same time. It's hard. I guess I would have to find an example, and that's going to take too long. I'm trying to get better at doing these kind of things, like reviews and stuff, but I'm just not very good at it. I'm almost towards the end of it, so I don't know, maybe I'll put up and keep reading it, because I'm feeling guilty that I've DNF'd 3 library books, and, I'm trying, like, in most of the last 3 books on my Goodreads challenge have been DNFs, and they're not even from my own personal collection. Although, my own personal collection, I wouldn't DNF any of those books. I mean, I get that. I buy them because I'm probably going to keep going with them. I'm going to read them, not going to DNF them. But anyway, so, I'm almost done, so maybe I will get past the annoying stuff. But also, I do like, there's a lot of references to historical figures, like Charles Dickens is in here, and I think Terry Pratchett is implying with this book that the character of Dodger is the one who inspired some of Dickens's characters, like, the Dodger from Oliver Twist. And I do believe, and I got kind of spoiled that his name is revealed, his real name, and his real name is actually Dodger's real name is another character from another one of his books. And he also, but it's just so weird that everybody loves him and everything, and it's just kind of annoying. And then there are things where, like, there's this one character that keeps saying, and, like, will say things like, this, blah, 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 and, blah, 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 and he'll always say, Terry Pratchett has him always saying, in front of, sometimes in front of, so, not all the time, but it's enough to annoy me. It's like, who talks like that? Who says, like, if he was writing a non-historical, of course, that's also a fictional character that he made up, so I guess he can do whatever he wants, but for me personally, it kind of annoys me. Because I feel like no one talks like that. No one says, and then, continues their sentence. It's an annoying little quirk that this character has. But anyway, it's, like I said, it's a fun book, and I think some of the Terry Pratchett fans did really enjoy this book, and according to Goodreads, because I did look at the reviews. And, not all of them did. Some people also agree with me and did not like this book, but others gave it at least 4 or 5 stars. And some people did give it 3 stars. And there are a few that gave it 2 stars or 1 star. So, like I said, there's 16 chapters. I'm on chapter I'm in the middle of chapter. The other thing that always is, oh my god, because people, like, when authors don't have as many chapters, number of chapters, like this one has 16, so automatically it's like there's like 10, 20 pages in one chapter. It's like, oh my god. I mean, it's not so bad when I really actually am really loving the book, but in this case, I'm not really loving this book. So it's like, let me see, I'm trying to think. So still in the middle of chapter 12. So, there's, after chapter 12, there's 4 more chapters, I think. 13, 14, 15, 16. Four more chapters to go. 14, 15, 16, wait, no. 13, 14, 15, 16. Yeah, 4 more chapters to go once I get done with. So, I'm just gonna finish it up. So, I did participate in Nonfiction November, attempted to, and I also attempted to participate in Tome Topple, which now I'm going to have to wait a whole nother few months, like 6 months or however long it takes before she decides, because I think the next Tome Topple will probably be in the spring. So, like, I read, the 2 books I read for, attempted to read for Nonfiction November were Marie Antoinette, The Journey by Antonia Fraser, which, as you can tell by the title, it's about Marie Antoinette. So I read to the point of where Marie Antoinette, it's like we got a little bit of her childhood, and now we're at the point where she's getting ready to be sent to marry the King of France. And that's as far as I got. My lips are so chapped right now. Like, there's like loose skin or whatever. I can feel it. And the little bit I've read so far, I like it. It's not that hard of a read. And I'm on chapter 5. So, like I said, when sometimes, again, there's another type of book that I will sometimes lose interest on. But, I mean, I haven't entirely lost interest, it's just, I have so much fiction to read. And I'm still in class, so we got 2 more books to read for class, and I don't know if we'll get to both of them. But we're finally getting to the book that I was most excited about, which is Hamlet. Which actually is not a book, but it's a book format. It's a play. So I was told that, so we're going to read Hamlet. I actually have it here. And I think for those of you who are new to Shakespeare and are new to the whole language of Shakespeare, these Signet Classics, I think, are the best editions to buy, because, the actual writing is translated into modern English. Because, I mean, it isn't English, but it's like Old English, normally, like Shakespeare's work, because he lived so long ago. But, these editions seem to be, it's translated in modern, regular English. I mean, there's still things like, it looks like there's still things like 'tis, thou hast, stuff like that, but it's still written in modern English despite that. So I would recommend oh, I hate this. Wish I could get rid of this cough. And also started reading Walt Disney, A Triumph of the American Imagination by Neil Gabler. I didn't get as far. I mean, this is a big book, so. But I'm on I think this is chapter 3, The Go-Getter. Which is basically when he starts being a cartoonist. And I'm getting ready to read section 3. And I also started on YouTube. I started watching these videos where they talk about theme parks, the extinct rides and attractions on those theme parks, or the history of even not necessarily the extinct ones, the ones that still exist. So I'm learning a lot about Disney lately. So I still want to read this, but it's a pretty big book. And oh crap, don't want to lose my space. It's the problem with bookmarks. Like, I really like the magnetic bookmarks because they stay in place. So there's that. Okay, so the only books that I finished this month, other than, like, I'm hoping to finish Dodger in the next few days, maybe today, since I'm actually off today, are The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, and this is the sequel to Mistborn: The Final Empire, which is basically, this one is about the aftermath to after the Final Empire, and how they handle the situation. Like, we have our two main characters, Vin and Elend, and they keep wanting to say Ellen, as in, like, Ellen DeGeneres, but it's Elend, and how they're dealing with the situation, and how now they're kind of running things in this kingdom. And so far, I have not been disappointed by these books. I really enjoyed this ride, and I really love the magic system of swallowing metals for you to do these special things, like running really fast, or being able to hold off sleep, being able to jump across buildings like Superman. Of course, they wouldn't know who Superman is in this world. And like I said, there is romance. I'm one of those booktubers that does like at least a little bit of romance in my fantasy. But I also don't want it to be mostly about the romance. And I mean, the romance does take more of a front seat in this book, but it's still not the main focus of the book. And I cannot wait to read after how this one ended. I cannot wait to read the third one, and I will do a more thorough review. Like, next year I want to do this thing where, like, I read certain types of books, like classics and big fantasy books, and do separate reviews for those. Because for so long I was always reading YA books, you know. So, and I want to get, and again, just like this year, I want to get better at reviews. It's just, I probably need to be better at taking copious notes. Problem is, I don't like taking notes when I'm reading, because then I have to stop and write things down and I want to write in the margins and everything. But I mean, I do have thoughts when I'm reading. I mean, I'm not totally blank when I'm reading. I have thoughts and opinions and reactions to things. But yeah, so I want to continue getting better at reviewing books like this. So I'll do a more thorough review of that. And then the only other book I finished, like I said, I'm hoping to finish Dodger in the next, either today or the next few days. Like I said, I think I could probably finish it today, you know. I mean, the problem is I do need to start thinking more about my essay, you know, which, for my class, for Canterbury Tales, is North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. And this is basically like a Pride and Prejudice retelling, except for it's set in industrial England, in the city. We have Margaret Hale, who is a girl from Helston, a little country town or whatever, and her father is a parson. So Margaret, when the people who take over her father's church, when he does not like how things are going, how they're making him reaffirm and everything, he decides, him along with his other fellow priests, they're not going to do this anymore. So he uproots his family without telling them why, because he's kind of afraid to tell his wife, to the city of Milton, which is an industrial town where there are a lot of mills and stuff. And neither Margaret nor her mom Maria are too keen on the situation. In fact, Maria gets very sick and depressed. I think that's what it was. I mean, they wouldn't know what that is back then, but I think she had depression. And of course, they wouldn't have the medicine to cure it or wouldn't know about it. But I could be totally wrong here. But I think it was partly depression. Correct me if I'm wrong if you know more about depression than I do. But Margaret, of course, makes the best of the situation, and then she ends up meeting John Thornton, who is kind of their landlord and also one of the owners of one of the mills. And this whole time, throughout this whole book, it's a lot of miscommunications, misunderstandings, lots of judgment and prejudice against the two of them. And but eventually they fall in love, or he falls in love with her first, just like Darcy fell in love with Elizabeth I. And then Margaret, just like Elizabeth, realizes her feelings after she rejects him. And there's two subplots. There's also, because of course this is during the industrial, right, as soon as the Industrial Revolution starts, you have the workers at the mill who start to protest and want to be paid better for what they have to deal with at the mill. And Margaret starts to sympathize with the workers, especially when she befriends one of the workers, the Higgins, and it's Nicholas Higgins and his two daughters. And one of the daughters, from working on another mill, not Thorne's mill, but a different mill, ends up getting sick, is sick when she meets Margaret. So Margaret sympathizes with these people and tries to help them out, which makes her relationship with John Thornton a little more difficult, because he feels like she's judging him constantly because of that. So there's this, and they go on strike eventually. And the other plot is that Margaret's brother was in the Navy, and unfortunately he got in, when him and his crew mutinies against the captain, who was a tyrant, that got him in trouble. So now he can never come back to England, or else he'll get hanged for mutinying against the captain. And, of course, that comes into play later, because when Margaret's mother is sick, she desperately wants to see her son again before she dies, and Margaret writes him a letter to have him come to England to see her one last time. And I'm very glad I read the book. I finally read the book, because I love the miniseries. My only issue is that I did not like the ending of the book. It was kind of boring compared to the ending in the miniseries, which I feel like was more romantic, more cinematic, and I definitely get why they changed it from finally reading the ending of this book, which I kind of knew that was coming, but at the same time I was hoping for more. Now, of course, the book is a little slower because it has more in it than the miniseries, because, of course, even with a miniseries, you can't include everything that's in a book, depending on the length of the book. It's perfect for those kind of books, like for someone like Stephen King, or for classics like that are this length. A miniseries format is perfect because it's longer than a movie, which generally, I think most movies are 2 hours long, unless some people make exceptions, like Peter Jackson and his Lord of the Rings and King Kong remake. And then James Cameron, his movies are pretty long too. But that's only if the movie is actually interesting throughout the whole movie. It is a bit risky making a movie that's 3 hours long. It's going into theaters. But with a miniseries, it can be a little longer, and it's also separated like a TV series, where you have 3 parts, usually 3 or 2 parts. But they still have to cut. They still can't include everything, and it's also, there are just some things that can't be included on screen that won't be translated well on screen. Some of the things I really liked were the discussion on like the philosophy of religion. There's a little bit of discussion about that in the whole plot of the workers versus the mill owners. In that whole conflict. I always thought that was kind of interesting. And it was done in, fictionalized format, so it wasn't as boring as hearing a lecture where a teacher is all like, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so those are the only 2 books I've finished, and currently, once I'm done with Dodger, I'm going to be reading, these 2 books from the library. So I'll return. So I don't know if I'm gonna wait until Monday, which is the actual due date these books are due, or I'm gonna go Friday or Thursday or Friday, like tomorrow or Friday. I might go ahead and return my books and renew those two. But I think I'm gonna have to just not get any more books. Although I did say that I would continue, I would try another, another Hemingway. In his books, not all of his books are that long. But I'm also currently reading the second book in the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb, Royal Assassin, which is really enjoyable. I also like this. I'm so glad I'm getting more into these kinds of books again, because I did, as I've said in previous videos, I love the Dragonlance books, which are like the same kind of books. So yeah, I wanted to get back into reading these kinds of books. Like I read Juliette Marillier's Daughter of the Forest. I want to read more of Juliette Marillier's books. I recently bought some R.A. Salvatore books, and I'm accumulating Brandon Sanderson and Robin Hobb books. At least they're like their main universe books. I don't know if I'll get their books that are outside those universes, because I don't know if Robin Hobb does any other books outside of her universe that she's created with the Farseer books. Starting with the Farseer books. But yeah, this is basically about this young boy Fitz, who is the bastard son of Prince Chivalry of this world. And unfortunately, Chivalry cannot, because he's a bastard, he can't really acknowledge this kid, but he does set him up with the stable master of the palace, Burrick, who raises him and teaches him when he's 6, teaches him about like horses and other animals. But then eventually, his Chivalry's father, King Shrew, notices Fitz and decides to take him in and give him a little bit of, and improve his life a little bit. He's still considered a bastard, but at least he's protected. And he apprenticed him to his assassin Shade. And that whole book is, the first book, Assassin's Apprentice, is about his experience with Shade and how he learns how to be an assassin and pay attention to little things about the people that are a threat, that could potentially be a threat to King Shrew and their kingdom, the Farseer kingdom. There's, starting towards the end of that book and into this one, there's a little bit of a romance that Fitz develops with another orphan girl he became friends with, and he was living on the streets. And I believe this one goes from when he's, I didn't notice the wolf on the cover. And I think this is from when he's 15 to like early 20s. I think that's when I heard that this particular one is about. As far as his age, Fitz's age. And there are a couple of magic systems, like, in this series, like there's, Fitz develops the wit, which is basically you mind meld and bond with animals, but Burrick warns him not to do that because oftentimes when you do that, when you have the wit, you become more beast than man, and Fitz, not wanting to upset Burrick, tries to resist the urge to bond with animals, but it has not gone well so far. And there's also the skill, which is something those of the Farseer line develop, where, again, it's kind of a mind-melding thing, reading minds and controlling other people's minds. And, of course, Fitz is part of the Farseer line, so he has potential to develop that skill. It's called the skill, actually. And that's another plot in the first book as well. Like, he gets, and I believe from what I'm told, and what I've noticed in this book is I'm guessing the third book in this particular trilogy, that will slowly becomes more and more, those magic systems become more and more involved. And again, it's hard, I am so bad at these review things. But I am really liking it, and really enjoying it, and I also started a little bit getting back into reading Crazy Rich Asians because my dad, and this is technically my fault because he didn't know I was reading this book and that I hadn't finished it, he got the movie from Redbox yesterday, so I watched the movie, and now I know exactly what happens. But to be fair, I have been told, a booktuber did mention that this book, and oh my god, I just realized how long this video is. I'm really hoping it uploads. She said that the ending of the movie is a little different, which makes sense because even with a book like this, there are things that again don't translate on screen, and you do have to kind of change things. So I started reading that last night. So those are the books I'm reading. Like I said, I'm also reading Hamlet for class now. So what are you guys reading right now? How did your reading go in November? Feel free to put in the comments below. And I will talk to you all later. I hope you are, as always, enjoying your reading. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And click subscribe if you haven't already. I would really appreciate it. Alright, bye.